Nyawes kena kagoiga dewada shanikasa anondoa katni agida katni ko ginonigan tnonge wanitio nenge wanisade. Hello everybody. My name is Lauren Jimerson, and what I said was in my native language, which is Anondawakat Gawano, or the Seneca language. And what I said was Nyawes Gana, which I'm thankful that all of you are here. Everybody made it here safely. When we first start to speak, we always thank the people. So thank you for everybody coming here. And I said Dewadosho Nikaso, which means my name is Dewadosho. And in Seneca, my Seneca name actually has lost its meaning, so I don't know what the meaning of my Seneca name is. But everybody knows me as Lauren or Goody. And I am Seneca, that's what Anondawatgat means. And I am of the Heron clan. And I said, Wanitsio Nenge Wanisade, which means today is a beautiful day. And that's something that I say every day. Because I'm thankful to wake up every morning, because not everybody has that privilege. So we were invited here to speak about our experience at Standing Rock. Angel, this is my son Angel. I guess I'll start at the beginning, which was I remember hearing about what was going on with the Dakota Access Pipeline probably about April, and I think it was about August when it started to gain momentum. And I knew people that were going out there, and so when things just started to happen and people were starting to show up there, and I thought it was this grand cause. And one of the things that we believe in as Haudenosaunee people, or people of the Iroquois Confederacy, is that we have to be mindful of our decisions that we make today, how they're going to affect 7 generations into the future. So I decided that I needed to educate my children, and Angel is actually runs a youth group at Ganondagan. And so we got the youth group together, and it's a collection of Native youth and non-Native youth. And we educated them about this cause. And what the interesting thing was that our Native youth knew about the issue, and our non-Native youth did not. So we were sort of educating them not only on what was going on over there, but what our values are as Haudenosaunee people. And just said this is an issue that's not just affecting us now. It's an issue that's going to affect you and your kids and your kids and your kids and so on. And we actually did an art project. We had an event over at Ganondagan. What event was that? We had an event, but we did all these an art project centered around water, and I'm actually a trained art therapist, and so I did this relaxation room where we did painting with bubbles, and I played water sounds, and we were kind of raising awareness about this water issue. And it just seemed like things just kept kind of building up over at Standing Rock, and back then I felt moved to go, and I was really trying to figure out when was a good time to go. And I manage a project called the Iroquois White Corn Project. Has anybody heard of it? Yeah. So what the Iroquois White Corn Project is we're sort of reviving this ancestral food, which actually, does anybody know what Ganondagan is? Yeah. All right. So the Iroquois white corn was actually grown at Ganondagan, and it was burned down back in 1687. And so we've brought this white corn back to Ganundigan, and because it's like it goes through a process in order to get it to an edible state. It takes a really long time to get there. So what we do is we process it so it's ready, available for people to eat. And, that being one of our ancestral foods, we actually sent corn back in September. We sent about 30 pounds of dehydrated hulled corn, and I think 20 pounds of white corn flour and 20 pounds of roasted white corn flour. I just thought it was really important knowing that we had Haudenosaunee people there, and not just Haudenosaunee people either, all kinds of people are there. And so when it came time for, I don't know, it was like the week before Thanksgiving, or as I've heard other people calling it Thanks-taking, a holiday that I don't even really care to celebrate. And I thought, what better place, would I want to be on a day like that than Standing Rock? We had actually had a very uplifting keynote speaker at the Canandaigua Treaty, which we commemorate every Veterans Day in Canandaigua. It's like one of the original treaties between Native peoples and the United States government, and it's actually a treaty made with the Haudenosaunee people. So we had this photographer, Alex Hamer, who works for Indian Country Today. And, so this was in November 11th he spoke, and he showed us pictures, and, he said that, everyone's paying attention to the violence that is happening on the front lines. And, he said, what people aren't talking about is how peaceful the camp is, and how youth-centered and family-friendly this place is. And that was, those words really spoke to me, and, with his pictures. And because honestly, when things really started to get violent out there, when I think really the first big event was when the dogs attacked the people. And, that sort of opened me up. And, what it did for me was, I thought it brought up a lot of negative feelings. When I was doing my graduate work at Nazareth College, I studied historical trauma. And so, we're talking about, trauma that's been handed down to me through my great-grandparents, with the cultural erasure of United States residential schools. And so, I was talking to one of my friends maybe a couple nights ago on the phone, who took about 4 trips there. He had gone there for the first time, I think, at the end of September. And then from that point on, he was driving home to work during the week and then driving back on the weekends. And, he actually met me there and he met us there, showed us where to go, where to set up our camp. And, how do I even put this into words? We think about all the injustices that have been done to our people over the years. And, with the announcement of the denial of the easement, it was a small victory. And I remember me and Angel were sitting in, Angel actually has a music room, and we were sitting there, and I can't remember what you were doing. I think watching videos or something. And I was on Facebook, and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, they announced, President Obama denied the permit for them to drill. And within a span of 5 seconds, I went through a rainbow of emotions. There was kind of the celebration was very short. And then, it was kind of what next? Now what, As Indigenous people, I think the grand victory is in that, our people came together and we were heard. Our voices are heard. It's not very often that we have been able to share our stories from, our histories from our side. And with the work that I'm doing with the Iroquois White Corn Project, I'm finding that I'm getting a chance to do that more and more. But I thought about all the people that are there, and at that point, that was when all the veterans were there. So I was there the weekend before, and I kept hearing about this place, and we were so anxious to get there. We left Wednesday evening, and we got there Thursday evening, probably about 10 o'clock at night, and it was very dark. It's just like these roads that just stretch on, and we're like, are we even like gonna end up anywhere?
You didn't see any lights anywhere. It was literally just farmland for miles and miles.
It wasn't even farmland. It was dark. It was very dark. And we were just going on, and then we met my friend at the casino. There's the tribe owns a casino, and there's a gas station there. So he met us there, and I just remember finding him, and I ran around the car and gave him this huge hug. It was like the biggest hug we've ever given each other. And he led us over to the camp, and it like, who was driving? I was driving, right? Yeah.
I was.
You were?
I don't know. Someone.
I don't know. But, you could tell that we were coming to the camp because they have these huge floodlights out of this black darkness. There's these huge floodlights, kind of like, it looked like that. But there were a lot of them. And I was like, I was telling Angel, I was like, oh, those are the floodlights that, the DAPA workers put up at the beginning of the month. And we couldn't even see camp. I was just like, people always talk about how when you come upon it and you just see the whole camp and how majestic it is. And I'm like, we don't even get to experience that. But what happened was when we entered, we approached the driveway and what they call flag row. And we came up, and my friend, they have this booth there, and they had this huge dream catcher. Like, it must have been like, I don't know, 8 feet tall. It was like huge. And so there's this, shack there, and this woman comes out, and she spoke to my friend in his car, and then she approached our car, and she ran down the rules, which are, do you remember?
No drugs, no alcohol, no weapons.
And she said, we are matriarchal here. She said...
The first thing they say is they ask you, is this your first time, or are you coming back home?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, so we told her, we're just arriving. This is our first time here. And, so she said, we're matriarchal here. She said, we put women and children first. And, she said, and so do our men. And, and she said, welcome to camp. And then we started driving. And, when we were approaching, I kept telling Angel, I was like, oh my God, we're here. Like, oh my God, we're here. I couldn't believe, like, we had made it. We drove right through, we had a backup plan of stopping and maybe sleeping, but we didn't even do that. And, but, so we were pulling into, Flag Row, or Flag Road, and, the first thing I noticed was like, there's this drum there. There was singing. There was a drum, and we could smell, the campfires and sage and tobacco, and then you could just feel how powerful it was there, and it was like one of the most beautiful feelings. I cried when when we arrived, and I still cry when I talk about it. I was like, oh my God, Angel, I was like rolling up my window, and then we both rolled our windows down, because to us, that's home. When we go home to do ceremonies in our community, that's what home smells like. It smells like wood fire and tobacco and sage, and there's singing. So we went home, and
it was just a wonderful feeling overall because me as an extremely anxious person, I was having a lot of anxiety about being so far away from home, and not just that, just so far away from my own bed, from my cat, and it's like even as we were leaving, it was like I don't know, like I need to go here, but I'm like nervous about not being home. And we got there, and all of my anxiety just went away because it was like being home. Like we were already family there with everyone, and it was just wonderful. It was a great feeling.
So we got there, and it turned out I had cousins at Camp Haudenosaunee, which is where we stayed, and they came out with flashlights and headlamps and helped us put up our 2-person tent, which took all of 3 minutes. And we went to sleep that night, and I remember laying there and looking up at the roof of our tent, and I could just hear people singing and hear people laughing around their campfires, and it was like some of the most beautiful sounds ever. And I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, I opened up my eyes to singing. To various Thanksgiving prayers in different languages, indigenous languages, water ceremonies, sunrise ceremonies, all these ceremonies happening all at the same time, and every day that we were there, like that's what it was like. We'd go to sleep to singing, and we would wake up to singing, and I think one of Angel's favorite parts was like when we would leave camp. And what would they tell you when we would come back?
Oh, they would ask you again, is this your first time, or are you coming back? And you'd say, we're coming back, and they'd just say, welcome home. And I thought that was a wonderful thing that they did there.
I really felt that too. Like it was, it felt like home. And so we were there for about 3 days. And some of the most beautiful things that I saw was well, there were so many sounds and things to see. I think all of it was just beautiful. People were just constantly moving. People were sorting through donations, and there were I don't know, everybody just working together. It was just this working community. And I remember my cousin, the first morning was like, oh, you want to go get some coffee? So we went to the main fire to get coffee, and everybody was just like smiling and saying hello, as you walk past them. And, we actually walked through where they were sorting donations, and somebody asked me, do you need anything? And I was just like, no. I was just, looking around because I was like, oh my God, like there was so many donations. And if I needed anything, it was there. Various times throughout the day, people would just be yelling, Mini-Wachoni. Does anybody know what Mini-Wachoni means? Water is life. So you'd hear someone go, Mini-Wachoni!
It echoed throughout the whole camp.
Yeah.
And then like another person.
Yeah. Everyone said, Mini-Wachoni! All day long. That was something me and Angel still do, like we'll walk past each other.
I feel like everyone who's been to camp still does that. Because like you even see posts like, oh, I have to like fight the urge to yell Mini-Wachoni now that I'm not in camp anymore.
Yeah. And then I don't know if anybody else saw this. I feel like I'm the only one who saw this, but there'd be like I'd see a guy off in the distance, and he'd have a bottle of water in his hand, and he'd go, "Mini Wachoni," and he'd take a drink. I saw that quite a few times, and that was one of the most beautiful things I think I saw. The other one was my friend was staying over at the Red Warrior camp, and that place was amazing. That was the camp that was on the front line. So these are the people who were on the front line. But when we were there wasn't a whole lot going on. We went at actually a very peaceful time, and at the front line, anyways. And so I was there. I was helping them. There was this abandoned camp, and Angel wasn't with me at the time. So I went there and I was helping, take down this abandoned camp and sort the stuff that had, to see what was usable and what was not. And we took a break and we were staying by the fire because it was cold that day. It was really cold. We left like 3 hours before it snowed. So this was probably 5 hours before it started to snow there. And so I'm sitting at the fire, and then there was this big, tall, like 7-foot dude. I see him go, "Oh my God!" And then this other guy, and the other guy was like, he was probably, 6 foot, and he was like big. And they went running towards each other, and the taller guy just picked up the other guy, and they were like hugging, and that was one of the most beautiful things I ever saw too. And the smaller guy, who's still a big guy, he's like, "Oh my God, you make me feel so small." It was really sweet. But I think that our time there was really, it was really powerful. And it really kind of helped put things into perspective for me. Thinking about all these past injustices, and we're thinking, we're talking about like the massacre at Wounded Knee, the assassination of Sitting Bull that just happened. The anniversary was just a couple days ago, 2 days ago, I think the 15th. I was actually just watching a video of people pulling bodies out of rubble in Aleppo, and it was really disheartening to watch. And a lot of the people that came out of the rubble were kids and babies, and it actually, what it reminded me of was, I was just telling Angel on the way here that after I was 16 years old when I had Angel, and so when Angel was a baby, I started reading this book called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. And one part that really stuck to me was, there's a section where he talks about how there were so many babies that were mutilated in the massacre at Wounded Knee. And, so I thought about that, when watching this video on Aleppo. And I told my family today that, I don't care to have any Christmas presents. I don't want anything for Christmas. For years, I haven't really cared to celebrate Christmas anyways. But, I said, there's people still at Standing Rock, the water warriors who are there and toughing it out. The winters are harsh. And, every day I'm thankful for them, and I think about them all the time. And, I think the people who are there are so beautiful for doing what they're doing. And, they need supplies, they need, firewood, they need water, they need propane. And, I'm home, and, my kids are safe, my kids are healthy, I'm safe and healthy. I have gas in my car, I have a car. There's nothing that I need. There's nothing that I need right now. And, thinking about the water warriors still at Standing Rock, refusing to leave. And these people who, are being killed. Like, I don't need anything more. So I just wanted people to kind of keep that in mind. This fight against the oil, the pipeline, and the oil industry. For me, as an Indigenous person, is about more than the fight for Earth. I mean, that's a big part of it. But we're also talking about raising our voices against oppression. 500 years of oppression. It certainly has brought up a lot for me. My friend, who I talk to on a regular basis, who's been back and forth, we talk about, all these things that are brought up, these old feelings that are brought up, our history. It's about that also. We're raising our voices, we're being heard, and we can't stop. Like, this is not the end of it. Did you want to share? Oh, and the other thing is I took Angel with me, because he's a young person, and what I wanted him, if anything, to experience it and feel the movement, because this is for him.
And I thought it was really important for me to go too because of that. And I'm not a social media person, but the whole time I was there, I was on Snapchat. Why? Because I have a lot of people on my Snapchat who are younger people in high school, freshmen, 8th graders, 7th graders, who I think need to learn more about this situation. And actually, when we came home, we stopped by a reservation on our way back. And I sat at dinner with my aunt and my cousin, and my aunt and her boyfriend, I don't know what's going on there. They were asking me how the trip was, how it went, what it was like, and my little cousin, how old is he, like 12, 11? He's sitting there at the dinner table just listening, and then he looks at me and he asked me what I was talking about, where I went, and I had to explain to him what was going on, and my aunt just looked at him and asked him, "You don't know about Standing Rock?" And I looked at her and I said, "Did you tell him?" She said she assumed that they would learn about it in school. So I was a bit upset about that. So I started telling my cousin about it and give him more of an understanding. But I do talk to kids who are younger than me that are still in high school. And I'm graduated, so I don't know what they talk about in school. But they're telling me that all they hear about is whatever's on the news. And what's on the news is not from our point of view, from the people who are actually at the camp. And it is mainly about the violence that's going on there. And I think the day after we got home, I was in the living room with my aunt, and she was watching the news, and they had interviews of the cops that were there on the front lines talking about, they interviewed, I think, whoever was in charge there, and they said, "We reacted to the violence that the protesters were showing to us." And it made me really mad. I was really pissed off. But seriously, that's the only point of view that a lot of people who aren't looking into it, that's all they're seeing is the violence, and knowing that what they think they know is that it's the protesters who are showing violence. And really, when it's where everyone's peaceful there, it really is. It's a different experience going, and even knowing someone who's been, because then you also hear that point of view. And so the whole time I was there, I was on my Snapchat taking videos, pictures of our camp. I got permission first, but there was one night where that was another thing. I got really sick. I got really sick right before we left, but I decided to go anyways. but the whole drive there, I was just not feeling well. But the second we got to camp, I felt so much better, and a night's sleep, like I was not sick after that. But we took a couple trips off of camp. We went to the casino for a concert. We went out to Walmart at some point, and but every time we went away from camp, I got really sick, and it was horrible. But that night that we went to the concert at the casino, I got really sick. I couldn't stay for the concert, and I sat in my car for 2 hours just by myself. It gave me time to really think and write. I'm a musician, so a songwriter, so I wanted to write everything I could in my notebook while I had that time. And then I was also taking videos explaining what it was like, the situation, what's going on there. So these kids who are looking at my Snapchat, they're hearing what I have to say and hearing what this is all about, and then sharing my opinion on things. And so that's why I thought it was really important for me to go. But I really enjoyed the experience. It was probably the most wonderful thing I've ever seen, seeing so many people united like that. And honestly, in this day and age, I never thought I'd get to see that. And that's another thing. Like, when my mom started telling me about this, she started telling me at work, because we work together. And I've been thinking since then, like, it's not like this is just a problem that we, I don't know how to say this, like it's new. Yeah, it's not like it's new, and it's never gonna go away. We could get rid of this, the Dakota Access Pipeline, but what about all the other pipelines? What about all the other people who are suffering because of pipelines? It's not just the Sioux tribe. And
I just wanted to say that, I did an interview with the city newspaper, and a lot of the things that I said weren't included in there because it was a really short article. But I was saying, the mining of, here in the Americas actually started with Christopher Columbus. So you think about that, this has been going on since the landing of Christopher Columbus in San Salvador. It's still going, and this isn't the only instance of this happening in indigenous territories. The Navajos have been living with contamination from uranium mines for several years, so it's not new, and I don't think. There's so much more work to do.
There is, and this is just a huge part on getting the word out there, and It's also thinking that in the future, 7 generations from now, like, what about my kids and my grandkids, their kids? What's going to happen? What if we can't stop this, and not a lot of people know? So it's not like a lot of people are doing anything about it. What if that happens? And then next thing you know, I'm not going to have great grandkids. What happens then? And it's just it's really opened my eyes. The Dakota Access Pipeline. And so I've been really getting into it lately, and I'm really happy I went. So
thank you.
Thank you for having us and for listening to us.